Hi, here are Talia,
And Yael.
and today we're going to talk about how to make a poster specifically for the Diplomacy and International Communications in English, Megama, requirements. So it's the end of the year, and you've been asked to make a poster about this huge project that you just wrote. How do you turn in a whatever page project into one poster? So the first thing we're going to talk about is content. What should be on the poster? What things do you have to make ahead of time? So of course you're going to have a title which says what the project is about, or it can be the question that you were looking at. You're going to have a definition of the problem or the conflict that you were analyzing. You're going to talk about tools and theories that you used, what kind of models, how did you analyze whatever you were doing. Of course, you're going to need things like graphs, numbers, or research, anything that shows what you've done, what solutions you came up with, how you did them, your conclusions from the project, and more things. So one of the things that are very important on a poster is to make it interactive. You don't want a boring poster that just has text. No one will read it. And so it's important to have things like maps or flowcharts or anything that makes the user, which is the audience, to think or to move with their eyes, their body, their brains. So we're gonna talk about later exactly how to represent all these things on the poster. So how do you take your project and turn it into a poster? So what you're gonna have to change is, of course, the entire thing. The first step is going to be to minimize the text. To decide what things go on, you should have your title and all the relevant information, the logos of your school, of the Megama, of whoever printed your poster, the names of whoever worked on the poster, your school, all the relevant information. That's going to be around the title at the top of the page. Later, you're going to have the definition of the problem, and you're going to talk about what you did. The rest of the poster is really the core of whatever you wrote. And at the end, you're going to have conclusions, recommendations, whatever is necessary for your specific poster. So the first hardest step is minimizing text. Taking your whatever page project and turning it into little blocks of text. A general rule about text is less is more. If you have a big block of text, no one is going to read it. If you have little text, people will be interested in reading it. You have to simplify whatever you wrote. You can't write about the effect, the phenomenon, the whatever, because whoever's reading the poster doesn't necessarily know what you're talking about. So you should make simple sentences, make it that anyone could understand, kind of like the idiot's guide to whatever you wrote about. Only include things that are relevant to the audience, meaning don't talk about why you chose this subject or what kind of difficulties you encountered. Those are things that you're going to talk about in the verbal presentation when you're presenting your poster. It shouldn't be on the poster itself. You're going to have to be able to explain graphs. If you're bringing numbers or graphs, you have to know why you chose it and why it's relevant. You cannot copy and paste from your project. I know it's really tempting, but no one wants to read a huge block of text, which is basically what your project is. Not everything in the work will make it to the poster. In fact, if your poster looks like your project, you're in trouble. There should be room to explain, meaning you're going to have a lot of information on the poster, but you need to be able to add information verbally that doesn't exist on the poster, meaning why I chose this, why it's an important subject, all sorts of things that you'd explain to someone when you're talking about your project, but you don't have to know in order to understand. You have to have more information and explanation that aren't on the poster, as I said. And the poster needs to stand alone. If someone reads the poster and doesn't understand what's going on, then there needs to be more connectors. Okay, next we're going to talk about the graphics, and we're going to show you how to do them later. The first and most important thing is the text. Your text has to be large, no smaller than a 24-point size. you have to be able to see the text from a distance. If you have to be with your nose up to the text in order to read it, that's bad. Another important thing is having a uniform look, using one font for titles and another for the actual text. No more than that. You can look up a lot of different videos on what different fonts you should use. Generally, you should use a serif font and a sans serif font, meaning, for instance, Times New Roman and Arial, and choosing one of them to be the text, one of them to be the titles, and that's it. Do not use 20 different fonts, even though it looks cool. Don't use complicated fonts. If you use Comic Sans, you will not be invited anywhere. Do not use Comic Sans. That is not a real font for scientific posters. Your text has to be spaced out. You can't have a long block of text at once. It has to be both spaced out, meaning you need to have it all over the poster, little parts, and also, if you've got some text, you need to have a large space between the letters and between the lines. Make sure that it's simple, short sentences to the point. Don't go on and on and on. Again, don't copy-paste from your project. I know it's tempting, but no one wants to read 2 paragraphs from a project on a poster. Your text should be visible and contrasting, meaning it should be large and readable. If you've got a black background, your text should be white. If your background is white, your text should be black, or a similar contrast. If your background is dark blue, then you can still have white text. But don't use bold colors, usually like orange or red for text. Generally go for things that are easy to see. Remember, when you print it out, you're going to have to be able to see it from a distance. Again, less is more of text. No one wants to read a large amount of text, and it's more inviting to read something short. Colors. You should choose 1 or 2 base colors, and that is going to be your color scheme. Your color can have meaning. For instance, if you're writing about water, choose a blue color, and that's going to be your base. Or if you're writing about something violent, then choosing a sort of red shade and making that your color scheme. But don't have the entire rainbow on your poster unless you're talking about gay rights.
So choose the base colors and you can work with them, like having a scale of colors and not, I don't know, like instead of having...
You can use different offsets of that color. For instance, if you chose blue, you can have darker and lighter blue. But if you chose blue, you can't really add in red suddenly. Unless you're trying to make a big contrast, which you can do with graphs. Your graphs can be different, especially if it's pie charts that have different colors. Make sure that you can see all of the graphs. If you're adding in a graph with all the colors, then you can have a white background behind it specifically. Again, it has to be contrast to the text in order to be able to read the text. I generally recommend using pastel colors as the background. Like, don't have an orange background. You can have light pink, light blue, light whatever you want, but the background shouldn't be what people are focusing on. It should be in the background. Organizing your content. You should choose either columns or blocks or lines. Remember that it should have a flow that makes sense. People read left to right and up to down, meaning if you have your first part, it has to be on the top or on the left in English. You can use both simultaneously. You can have blocks of text that you've put in blocks. We'll show you how to do that later. And then you can have things up to down and the blocks go left to right, for instance, like in comics. Remember to leave spaces. Your poster shouldn't be so overwhelming that there isn't a single space that's empty, but you can't have there be dead areas, meaning you can't have an entire side of the poster be blank. Okay? You don't want people to look at it and say, wow, this is like really little information. Okay, so now we're going to show you how to actually do these things. So we're going to go into PowerPoint. First, we're going to analyze the poster that we actually made. We're adding in some elements that we're going to show you how to do later, just so we can show you. So our poster right now is on 20%, which is how it's easier to work with, or even on 30. This is what the poster looked like at the very end. So you can see, first of all, that all of the content is in blocks. You've got the top title block that has all the relevant information, and later we did blocks. For instance, problem definition is text. However, each paragraph or sentence is on its own, and it's a large...
very short.
It's very short sentences, and in the actual poster that is much larger, the text is large enough that it's easy to read. You'll notice that the first thing that catches your eye are the reconciliation pyramid, our graphs, and the map, meaning that you have to be aware that whatever is visible, people will notice, and you have to be able to explain it as well. If someone looks at your poster and says, "What's that pyramid?" you're going to have to be able to talk about it. And so notice that you have enough visual representation across the poster. You can't have the top be only text and the bottom be only pictures. Sort of distribute it fairly across the poster, so you have pretty much visual things everywhere. We're going to talk about smart art later and how to add it in, which is something that really helps sort of break down text into something more visually appealing. Notice that our base color is blue, a light blue, which is the background, meaning that anything else is an offset of blue. If we have the titles, then they're with a darker blue background, subtitles with a middle color, our map and our pyramid are also offsets of blue. You'll notice that our graphs are multicolored. You'll also see, if you can, that the background of the graphs are white, so that it's easier to see the numbers and the information. Remember, you have a base color, but that doesn't mean that everything has to be that color. Now we're going to talk about how to make this kind of poster, what things to be careful of. So first thing, you're going to go into PowerPoint. We've got a blank PowerPoint, and the first thing you're going to do is go into Itzuv Shkufit, or whatever it's called on your computer, Hagdarat Amud, as you can see, and you have to choose whatever is relevant. So it depends on the requirements of the competition or the presentation, whatever you're told. Generally, you should go to Mut'am Ishit. Choose, for instance, generally Rochav is usually, 70, and Gova being 100. Okay, so you'll notice that it's very small. We're at 11% right now. We're going to go to 30. This is about how big it should be. You'll notice that there are dots and stuff. We're going to just show you real quick in Tatsuga. Under Atsuga, this is without. Generally, you can delete the these blocks that exist already because they're not relevant, and you're going to add your own later. You can go in, choose Sargel. You can see where you are on the page. Where's the middle? Okay, Kaveh Reshet. You'll use the slater to balance out all your graphic things. And Kaveh Shul. You've got the middle. Oh, where's the top one? Let's go a little smaller. Okay. That is a little odd. We should have a middle one where you can see what you're doing. Okay, so the first thing you're gonna want to do is work on your background. In that case, you go to Itzuv Shkufit. Either you can choose something that already exists, for instance, one of these. I don't recommend using these because they're usually not good for a poster that has a lot of information. They can use a lot of colors, And in general, it's best to have a monochrome background, meaning you have one shade and that's it. So you can choose you can either choose one of these, or you do Itzuv Reka, and you pick whatever you want. You can do Milui Malay, Milui Adrakti, blah blah blah. You choose whatever you want. And from then on, for instance, we chose, I don't know, this kind of blue. Or you can choose a different way that we're going to explain now. What you can do is leave the background white and add in sort of a separate background, meaning you go in to Tzurot under Osafa and you add a block of text. This is going to be the background for your text. In Itzuv Object, you can make it whatever color you need. You can do one of these or whatever. You can do Milui Tzura, pick whatever's relevant. For instance, this shade that we did on our poster, let's make it kind of pink. In this case, Mitar Tzura, you can make it relevant. Usually you want the mitar to be a dark color, so you can see the lines, or you can choose no mitar so you don't see the lines. It's important to make sure that your object is, in this case we don't have anything else on the screen, but you have to make sure that you say ha'aver achora and you put it in the background, ha'aver lareka, so that anything else you put on it won't get behind it and then you won't find anything else. Okay, you can say sader, you see ha'aver lareka, and that way you've got it. Okay, next thing is that you should plan where things are going. So for instance, if I've got this block, I can write on it. We're gonna add in some text here. Title. Now you see that this is very small because on a poster, that's very large. So 37 is pretty big. In general, nothing you write should be under 24 points. You can make this as big as you want if this is the entire title. In general, your title should be around 60. Here we go. It looks small here, but if we go into 100%, which is basically what whoever is looking at the poster will see, that's a pretty regular size for a title to be. Okay. And so, for instance, we put here the title, you can add in another tzura, and you can say this is going to be the body. You'll see again that we need a strong contrast. You can add in, for instance, say this is going to be my conclusions. But most important is that you have a plan, because it's kind of hard to make a poster when you don't know what goes where. Have a general plan, but know that things can change and it's okay for them to change. It's fine if you move your title down or up, if you move things sideways, up and down. Okay, next we're going to talk about smart art, which is our personal favorite. Whenever you have a large amount of text, it's good to organize it using smart art. Or, of course, graphs or whatever. You go into Hosafa under Iurim, you have smart art, you can choose whatever is relevant, you can have a list, or a process, or something that's more ecological, or a pyramid. So for instance, let's say we're using this kind of list that has general subjects, right, or pictures here, and specific things. So let's put in a picture of it doesn't really matter. Let's say there's a picture here, and here you put in, you'll say item 1, item 2, and so on. Of course, you can change this as needed, whatever side it should be on. You can see that now this entire block is on this side. You can make each one differently. you have a little window here where you can edit the text that you're putting in, meaning here's the first one, second, the item 2, add in things. We're just putting in nonsense right now, but you can have as many items by pushing enter or backspace, and another backspace deletes that one. And this way you have control over how many blocks there are and what it says on them. Okay. So now we've shown you how to use SmartArt. You can add in graphs. If you've got graphs from Google Forms, the easiest way to do it is to open it on your phone, screenshot your graph, edit it, crop it, whatever you need to do. Save it as a picture and then add it as a tmuna mitoch kovetz, which is easiest to work with. Of course, you can add in your own telshimim, as you can see, whatever kind you want. Of course, there's all the different kinds here. Whatever you're thinking of, PowerPoint generally has it. And in general, try to make your poster look visually appealing. Remember, someone's looking at it. Think about what you would be interested in seeing.
At the end, you need to check that all the boxes are aligned.
Exactly. Make sure that everything is on the same line. If everything is on this line of dots, make sure that everything finishes on that line of dots. Other than that, try to make things pretty, try to make it look like something you'd like. At the very end, look at what it looks like at 100. Right, to remember what it looks like when someone's going to see it in real life. And you should always go back and see what it looks like on a smaller scale, when you're seeing the entire thing, what your poster looks like. So we're going to look at our poster again. You see, this is what we see on the side. As you can see, we worked very hard to make sure that everything aligns. All the blocks start on the same line. Everything, all the text is the same size, all the titles are the same font size. Again, try and put in as many visual representations as you can. You'll see we have graphs, we have SmartArt, we have little barcodes that we put in, which makes the poster more interactive. A pyramid is also interactive. It makes the user look up. SmartArt that has facts here, making sure that your numbers are big and important, and make sure they're relevant. That's about it. Good luck on your poster, and prepare ahead of time the verbal presentation. Good luck!